So growing up, my father used to listen to a lot of motivational speakers around the house. I'm talking about we had all the cassettes, all the tapes, all the books, all the seminar stuff. And one of those voices I remember hearing all the time was a guy by the name of Jim Rohn. Not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but anyways. And what stayed with me about him wasn't that he was loud or dramatic or anything. It was the opposite. He sounded really calm, thoughtful, like somebody was just sitting across the room from you and explaining life. And as a kid, I did not fully understand everything he was saying. I just knew certain ideas stayed in my head. And then I got older. Life started happening. I started taking on real responsibility. I started feeling, real pressure and, your real setbacks in life. And I started realizing that those old speeches meant a lot more to me today than they did when I was younger. One of the biggest things I took away from listening to him was the idea that there's a difference between being interested in changing your life and actually becoming committed to changing it. When you're interested in something, you do it when it's convenient, when you feel good. When you're committed, you continue even when it becomes uncomfortable. And that's a lesson I had to learn personally over time. When I was younger, I thought motivation was, that was the key. I need those guys that are like, yeah, let's do it. I thought if I felt inspired enough, everything else would eventually fall into place. I realized that motivation is, it's temporarily. It just comes and goes. It's not constant. So some mornings you feel focused, some mornings you don't. Some days you feel strong mentally, other days you feel exhausted. And if your entire life depends on how you feel emotionally that day, it becomes very hard to build anything consistent. And that's where discipline really started making more sense to me. And when I say discipline, especially at that time, I don't mean like some dramatic or extreme, hoorah, but it's just the ability to continue doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel that day. Because after a while, I started noticing something in my own life. The times where I grew the most usually were not the moments where I felt the most motivated. Growth usually came from consistency, repeating simple things long enough for them to start actually changing me. I started getting up at 4:30, 5 in the morning. I started taking cold showers, where I felt like it or not. And it was things that just moved me. I think that's one of the hardest things for people to accept now, because we live in a world that constantly pushes quick results. Everybody wants transformation immediately. But most meaningful changes happen slowly. You build confidence slowly. You build discipline slowly. You build mental toughness slowly. Even trust in yourself is really built slowly. It's the consistent actions. Hey, can I get up at 5? Hey, am I going to take that step in that cold shower? A lot of confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself repeatedly. You tell yourself you're going to do something, then you actually do it. It's like self-talk. And over time, that changes the relationship you have in yourself. Pretty soon you start saying, you know what? Yeah, your day's already planned. I'm up at 5. I'm in the shower by 5:15. I'm going to drink 30 ounces of water real quick, before I even get out of the door. Jump starting your day. I remember hearing Jim Rohn talk about faith in a very practical way too. Not just about belief as an idea, but belief connected to action. That stayed with me because I've seen a lot of people believe in change without ever reorganizing their habits around the life they say they want to live. Eventually, I had to look at my own life the same way. I had to ask myself whether my actions matched the future I said I wanted. Because it's easy to say you want peace while living with chaotic habits. You got crazy friends, and who knows what they're doing, and you're around it, and there you go. It's easy to say you want discipline while consistently avoiding difficult things. It's easy to say you want growth while repeating the same patterns every day. And I'm not saying any of this from a perfect perspective. I've had to learn these lessons myself through experience, through mistakes, through pressure, through difficult seasons of my own life. Life has dealt me some crazy stuff. I do my best not to get into it, but if you know me, you know I've been through hell and back. We all have our own different experiences, but that is life. There are moments where mentally I felt drained, moments where I wasn't sure how certain situations were going to unfold, moments where I had to continue functioning even while carrying stress privately. And one of the things that helped me during those periods was structure, routine, responsibility. I had to do these things, having something solid to return to instead of letting my emotions dictate my decision. Oh, I'm not feeling it today. I'm sad about, this situation. Doesn't matter. I still got to get out there and do the action. Because emotions change constantly, but habits eventually shape your identity. After every repetition, you stop seeing yourself as somebody who only talks about change. You begin seeing yourself as somebody capable of handling difficult things. And I think that shift right there is important because life tests everyone eventually. At some point, everybody gets humbled in one way or another. Everybody faces moments that expose weakness in their mindset, their habits, or even their character. And character is big. Character is huge. As a quick example, and I don't want to digress but if you're a person who says, you know what, you keep your word, that's a character thing. Hey, I'll be there at 5 o'clock. You're there at 4:45, 4:55, 5 o'clock. You're there. People you know what, if he says he's going to be there, he's going to be there. And it's not just about time, it's about a lot of things. You say, hey, I got something. With my wife, if I tell her, hey, I got this, babe, she can breathe a sigh of relief because she knows. Because I said it, she knows how I feel about my word, especially when I say you have my word. She's going to believe that I'm going to do it. Doesn't matter what I have to go through to get it, I am going to get it done. But anyways, I could do a whole thing about character, but let's get back to it. So the question is whether you use those moments to become more grounded or whether you allow them to completely break your direction. And I think that's one question from those old speeches that stayed in my mind all these years later. And that question was, why not you? Why can't you become mentally stronger? Why can't you become more disciplined? And why can't you rebuild your own habits, rebuild your mindset, and rebuild your future? And it's so funny too, because guys, I have had a lot of different careers. I tried comedy, wasn't the greatest at it, but I did try it. You know what? I tried it. Something I wanted to do and I tried it. I was one of the head guys in a company. I was third in command. And, it took me to Dubai, Kuwait, Qatar, Thailand. We opened up restaurants across the globe. I did that for about 16 years. Before then, I was a boxer. And I was committed then. I was prepared to die in the ring. It was just one of those things where I'm not losing. And you know what? I never did. Never lost. And I can happily say that. But, I was committed to that. That's just some of the things. I've got a handful of things that I've tried. Anyways, getting back to what I'm talking about. Deep down, all of us, we know that we are capable of more than, we're currently expressing. We feel it. Usually, it's because they know they haven't fully committed themselves yet. And honestly, that may be one of the greatest lessons I carried from hearing all those speeches growing up. Your life starts changing when you stop waiting for some perfect storm or future version of yourself to appear, and you start building that person today. And it's all a day-by-day thing. Anyways, that's it. Have a great day.